I was told to bring the energy, so here the fuck we go.
Woo! See, that feels better right out of the gate, baby.
I hear you, man. I hear you. Welcome to another episode of The Sound. It is episode 91. We're 9 episodes away from the great 100, the great 100. So we've got a great show tonight. Honestly, we do. We've got the Grudge Match, which we all know. If you've been watching the show in the past, you know how the Grudge Match works. We'll put 2 videos up against each other. You guys get to vote for the winner. The champion this week is the Lone Wolf, Tommy Vexed. His song Cancel the King. It's going for the Hall of Fame tonight, and he will be facing Awake at Last with their new song called Bloodline. So all of that's going on, and the band Raw, who Jared knows them from the song You Call My Name. Yes.
We're going back, dude. We're going back to 2002, man. That's when that song came out. I looked that up earlier because I do my research for this show some of the time. All right. It's going to be a great conversation. I got a good feeling about that. They're putting out new music. Correct me if I'm wrong, Kevin, but I looked that up too. Like Kevin mentioned, we have the Grudge Match coming up, but we also had Tommy Vex in the going for the Hall of Fame tonight, Kevin, right? In the Grudge Match, and he shared our link on his Facebook story tonight.
Yes.
Fangirling about that all evening. So pretty pumped.
Yeah, it's good stuff. So we were supposed to have Above Snakes. So here's the story about Above Snakes. Above Snakes is actually going on tour with Raw starting tomorrow, I believe. And they have to meet the lead singer of Raw, who will be on our show tonight, tomorrow. So they've got some stuff they've got to take care of real quick. So they're going to take care of that. And unfortunately, they're going to reschedule for the next time that they want to be on the show. So yes. Nikki Kelly, we heard it today. Grand Theft Audio. Big fans of Tommy Vexed here, and it's good stuff. And we will continue to promote him and play him, even though other stations are too scared to spin his shit. We got it.
That's bullshit.
We got it.
Scott, man, good to see you in the comments below. Everybody that's looking forward to that Tommy interview, make sure you start sharing the page and share the link. Kevin's already created it, I do believe. Our lovely Lisa is in the comments as well. Good evening to you. And Matt, we love you, dude. Lisa and Matt just saw some killer music over across the pond there that they shared some pictures and some videos of. So we got to get them back on the show to talk about that shit.
So Kevin, I would be amiss if I didn't tell my beautiful girlfriend hello, because she is watching too.
And she's in the other room and could possibly threaten you with physical violence, or no?
I'm hoping she's out in the backyard enjoying the outdoor weather right now. So
okay. All right. That's true too. Pepper in the we're clicking away, Kevin.
Yeah.
Go ahead. We can't start the show though. Can't do the Grudge Match, Kevin, until we start it out the right way. And if you're okay with me, I'm going to click that button, man.
Do it.
Y'all just sit back and relax. Tonight's going to be a great episode. We appreciate y'all all here chiming in with us. All the music junkies in the house. You're watching The Sound. There we go. Let's roll into the Grudge Match, Kevin.
I was going to flash up the graphic real quick, but we were talking about it. So this is the next episode that we've got. It's going to be on May 16th. Tommy Vexed and, of course, Kingdom Collapse. So it's going to be a good one on May 16th. So make sure you join us for that. But yes, let's talk about the Grudge Match.
I can't wait, dude. I cannot wait.
The Grudge Match is 2 videos up against each other. You guys get to pick the winners. It's very simple. So we're going to play the first band, which is Awake at Last, with their new one called Bloodline. And when that's over with, we'll play the champion, which is the Lone Wolf, and Cancel the King. I will throw up, if you are on Facebook, you will see a poll pop up on the screen, and you can vote for either one of the videos. Now, if you're not on Facebook and you're on YouTube, Twitter, or Twitch, maybe that one person that watches us on Twitch every 7 months, 8 months.
And we are very thankful for you.
We are very much. If you're watching there, you won't see the poll, but you can put it in the comments and we'll see it. We'll count the comment votes on top of what we see out of the Facebook poll. And then at the end of the show, we'll announce the winner, and either the Lone Wolf, Tommy Vex, will be going into the Hall of Fame, or Awake at Last will move on to the next episode as the champion. So,
Kevin, we're also doing a giveaway tonight that people need to stay tuned to hear about.
Oh, I forgot about that.
I
just did that. I forgot about it.
I know. That's why I'm here, buddy.
I hear you. So as we're going to get it rolling right now, this is the Grudge Match. It's video number 1 right after this.
We make the same mistakes till we bend and break. Is it all in our bloodline, or is it failure by design? I'm hoping I can find a way to sleep tonight, manifest a different world inside my mind, destroy and create my thoughts, my fate. The world has changed. Are we too late? We are so vulnerable. Our lives are digital. It's plain to see that we've forgotten how to use our senses. They watch us from the sky, too scared to ask them why. We're giving up and giving in. We never read between the lines. We make the same mistakes till we bend and break. Is it all in our bloodline, or is it failure by design? Are we left behind? Only the strong survive. Is it all in our bloodline, or is it failure by design? When conversations leave us emptier inside, we wonder how all our addictions numb our minds, destroy and create, distract our minds. They're pulling the veil over our eyes. We are so vulnerable. Our lives are digital. It's plain to see that we've forgotten how to use our senses. They watch us from the sky, too scared to ask them why. We're giving up and giving in. We never read between the lines. We make the same mistakes till we bend and break. Is it all in our bloodline, or is it failure by design? Are we left behind? Only the strong survive. Is it all in our bloodline, or is it failure by design? Welcome to hysteria, incapable of learning from the past. Welcome to dystopia, where everybody's in it for themselves. We never read between the lines. We make the same mistakes till we bend and break. Is it all in our bloodline, or is it failure by design? Are we left behind? Only the strong survive. Is it all in our bloodline, or is it failure by design?
What a great tune from Awake at Last.
Yeah, that's a great way to start it. I'll tell you that.
So I will say this for a little fun fact here, that the guitarist for Awake at Last is also the booking agent for Kingdom Collapse.
Okay,
So
I'm learning stuff on the show tonight.
just a little fun fact there. But yeah, so that was video number 1, Awake at Last. It's called Bloodline. It's doing really well already on the charts. So glad we were able to get it on the show for you guys tonight. And they will be taking on the champion, Tommy Vex, the Lone Wolf. The song is called Cancel the King. It is video number 2 on the Grudge Match, and you are watching the sound.
When your best is the bottom, when you're breathing a word so cold, when you're back, you'll know when you lost all control and the bottom gets old. Can't you see the walls inside your head telling you you gotta rob yourself? Cheating on your dad, your friends tonight to cancel the king. When you gasp for the gospel, when you breathe every word you're told, when you don't come 'cause you gave up your throne, when you swallow the blood. Can't you see the walls inside your head telling you you gotta rob yourself? Cheating by your death, your friends tonight to cancel the king. Cheating by your death, your friends tonight to cancel the king. Telling you you gotta rob yourself. Cheating by your death, your friends tonight to cancel the king. Cheating by your death, your friends tonight to cancel the king. To cancel the king.
And there it is. That is the Lone Wolf, Tommy Vexed, Cancel the King.
Well.
Yes, and I will say this: I'm looking at the poll right now, and I'm looking at the votes as they're coming in. It's going to be a very close one. So everybody, get your friends, text message, messenger, share this thing out. Get your friends to vote for the band that you want, because this one's going to be a close one. I can already tell. So get those votes ready. So yeah, so there's the polls up. If you are watching on YouTube, Twitter, or Twitch, put in the comment video number 1 or video number 2. We'll count the vote that way as well and make sure that we get everybody counted correctly. And we'll go from there.
Nikki, where did you see Tommy live? I'm a little jealous about this comment because he's definitely on the short list that I've got to go check out the next time he comes, our way. I would love to see it. Ashley, thank you. Ashley, thank you for the comment as well. Kevin and I don't vote, but both of these songs tonight, are really great, and that's why we put them on here, is because we dig them for sure.
Absolutely. And a new thing that we've added for tonight's show is, so we've got 2 hashtags that we use a ton on this show. So every time Jared messes up, we're going to see hashtag Jared fucked up pop on the screen.
I like the red.
I haven't been able to use it yet.
Not yet. It's
but
coming.
I'm also the asshole, and I tend to say everything all at once, and no shit's cared. So there's Kevin is an asshole.
There you go.
Or Kevin's an asshole. Yeah, Kevin's an asshole. Which those are also available on our merch page. You can go buy those shirts. They've got those hashtags on the back of the shirts. There's Jared's right there. So you could purchase those on the website as
Speaking of merch, though, what about these hats?
Dude, yes. Got more coming in, man. Got more coming in. We're already sold out of them.
Yeah.
But we do have more coming in. Wait, hold on. Now it's time for the Sound 2 game. Who's going to be who? Kevin versus Jared. Hashtag Jared fucked up for Kevin's an asshole. Who will win? So without further ado,
yes.
Sahaj just hopped in backstage. I can see him. And while all of that was going on, I pulled a Jared. And,
there we go.
I was like, I went to go look for the video, and I was like, where's the video? Oh, well, it's still sitting in the editor. I hadn't finished editing it yet, so it's trying to upload right now. So we'll get it here in just a few minutes.
That's all right.
But let's go ahead and bring Sahaj in from the band Raw. Sahaj, how are you?
What up? How you guys doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm congested, and I have serious allergies going on. But other than that, everything's perfect.
Okay. Well, you don't have to sing tonight, so I guess that's okay, right? To have the allergies.
Yeah, we're trying to figure it out. This is sort of every year now that I moved to Indiana in 2020, and I escaped sort of the Los Angeles COVID lockdown, but now I have literally like terminal level allergies. So I might have. I'm not sure if I won out.
Yeah.
So, you talk about LA. I got a question for you. So originally, when you guys came onto the scene with "Call My Name,"
sure,
I had heard that you guys were from Boston. Is that true, or has it always been LA?
So I'm from New York City originally. Okay. We played a lot of shows in New York. We got signed a couple of times to smaller labels in New York, but New York really didn't have sort of like a super hard rock environment that was too conducive. I mean, it was really K-Rock was playing stuff, but it really wasn't. There was no real hard rock movement. But in Boston, WAAF,
yes,
it was quite aggressive, with Godsmack, and there was a lot of stuff going on. So once I met Ben, the original guitar player in Raw, he was from what's he from? No, Amesbury, Mass.
Okay,
and he ended up sort of suggesting that he suggested that we start playing shows in the Boston area. And when we started playing, it was terrible, as you would expect, but at least there was more of a community. And then we got real lucky, and a friend of ours knew Mistress Carrie at WAF, and he played her "Do You Call My Name?" She loved it, and it was one of those weird sort of like story, the stories that don't happen anymore, where somebody plays a song during the lunch cafe and the phones light up, and the old school way of being discovered. And that's literally what happened. And then we sold a bunch of CDs on our own in the Northeast and toured a bunch, and then signed to Universal Republic for a couple albums.
So I will tell you this on my side of it. At that time when "Do You Call My Name" came out, I was working at an active rock radio station and absolutely fell in love with that song when it got released. It was, and even now, even Jared and I were talking about it earlier. I was going through some of your stuff of new stuff, and then it popped up, and I'm like, oh, you know what? I'm going to play that. And it just brought back those memories of like the time that song came out was so for me epic in the music industry, because it was you guys, and then there was Breaking Benjamin, and then a lot of that stuff all was coming out at the same time. But that's one of those songs that just stuck out in my head from day one. So
Yeah, I mean, I work with a lot of cool bands. I've done a lot of producing and writing for other artists. But the other day, I went to see Breaking Benjamin and Seether with Starset and Lacey Sturm. I work with Starset quite a bit, and Seether was actually the first band we ever toured with ever
Oh,
in
wow.
2002. Yeah, and then and Breaking Benjamin was one of the bands that when we were doing well, they opened for us quite a bit.
Right.
You know, so it was sort of like that interesting thing of, you know, sort of watching, you know, from the sidelines a little bit, just feeling like, if I hadn't taken 7 years off, maybe I could have been doing this too. But yeah, I think the great part of that time period, I mean, you know, so it's easy from sort of like the music fans perspective, or well, I guess you were in radio, so this might be somewhat realistic for you too, but it was also the end of an era, you know, like
Absolutely.
that whole early 2000s, you know, record companies stopped paying for bands, radio stations dwindled in numbers, especially active rock stations, and the way that music was sold became completely confusing. And if your basis, you know, if your template for releasing albums was to make a whole record, then Spotify and everything ruined that for you. So you really had to sort of like reinvent the wheel, which I think to an extent, you know, you have that period, I would say from 05, 06 to say 2015, 16, where butt rock was pretty horrible, and there was a lot of garbage music. It wasn't a lot of interesting stuff. I have my own sort of benchmark for a band that came up and sort of reinvigorated me personally, even as a producer. Once Sempiternal came out by Bring Me the Horizon, it's sort of like
yes,
changed the way I looked at modern music, and it allowed me to say to myself, oh, all the stuff that I did in Ra and all the stuff that I like personally is actually the right stuff. Because prior to that, a lot of the bands that were succeeding were just things that I didn't vibe with at all.
Right.
And I didn't have any connection. And then to see Bring Me the Horizon sort of explode, and they exploded despite radio. In fact, I don't think they still to this date even have a #1 single. But I could be wrong there, but I don't think they do. But their numbers are insane, and I think they've done a really good job of sort of incorporating the, you know, when Sempiternal came out, I used to describe it as Linkin Park meets Under Oath. That's what it was.
There you go.
But it was this brilliant sort of mixture where everything felt hooky enough and commercial enough, but also note choices were intellectual and production was smart. And then when they came out with like Throne and Doomed and, you know, and the That's the Spirit album, it just took it that one more step to the point where I was just like, oh, I'm sold. And it allowed me to write really cool songs for bands like Starset, and then, you know, and take a lot of that to move it into a lot of the other bands that I was lucky enough to sort of be involved with at the beginning. Most recently, I got to work on the newest Nothing More record. Tired of Winning is a song I just wrote with them. But the intensity, the beauty of modern music is sort of feeling like it's relevant again. Mm-hmm. And there's also a bunch of garbage, but I'm hopeful, because I feel like there are moments where I hear something and I'm like genuinely inspired, even as a guy who writes a million songs and sort of listens to the same stuff. You know, I really only listen to top 40, if I'm honest. I think I'm more obsessed with Doja Cat and Juice WRLD than I am with most of the hard rock bands that float around.
I got you.
I wasn't expecting that for sure. You brought them up, but what do you think about Bring Me the Horizon's new stuff? Because now they're kind of on a different path than the albums that you mentioned.
Well, I really like that song "Die for You," right? And there's, you know, there's some formulaic things that they're doing that I recognize, right? There's a part in that song that sounds like Post Malone. There's a part in that song that's pretty much MGK, but they're still, you know, they are still the band that sort of has figured out how to brand themselves as a cool band, but also make good music at the same time. Like there's a combination. I'm really good friends with the guys in Ice Nine Kills. And what I love about Ice Nine Kills is that it's sort of unapologetically what it is, right? But it's such a great template. It's such a great template for other bands to look at and say, here's a project where the music is important, but the branding is either equally as important or more important, right? And Spencer's sort of a genius at stuff like that. And I love seeing that because, you know, I work a lot with Jason Hook, who was formerly a Five Finger, right?
Right.
And one of the things that we always fight about is because he really likes Kiss. And I've always hated Kiss, but he really thinks Kiss is amazing. But if you think about it, it was exactly what I'm talking about, where the branding and the music held hands. I think the music was terrible, but the branding was incredible. But, if you think about Five Finger, one of the things that they did incredibly well was the branding.
Yep.
Being able to make the visuals and the hockey jerseys and the face paint and the whole thing. Like, it was all the branding that made them stand out. Yeah, the music was good too. And Ivan was one of those people for me that I didn't necessarily, and I played with Ivan way back in the Motigrated days. But Ivan never really connected with me as a singer until, I don't even know, maybe F8 or right before that or something like that. I think he grew into the singing role far, far more impressively recently than in the beginning. It didn't really connect with me personally, but I mean, it's one of those things where the music industry is sort of now everybody's sort of playing with its perception as much as it's playing with how to write a good song. And I think that that's beautiful in a weird way, because I feel like when we lost the intimacy, or when we lost the mystery of not being able to, like, we think of Pink Floyd, it wasn't like we could watch what he did that day on Instagram. You know what I mean? So the mystery of Robert Plant, when we lost all of that with social media, I was pretty nervous about the idea that nothing cool was going to replace it, and it was just going to be all the access all the time. And some of these guys, Spencer being one of them, I feel like is able to make that entertaining and part of the branding without necessarily really diluting everything to a point where you're just like, oh, I don't want to know what this guy had for lunch,
Right.
Is and I don't mean this in a negative way. Do you mean like almost creating a caricature of what your music is? Is that what you're saying?
So in one of my in one of my producer speeches that I talk to when I talk to bands, because a lot of the bands that come to me when they're young, obviously the hardest thing for them to have is sort of a signature sound, right? Like, everybody wants to have that signature sound, that thing that identifies you above every other project. But most bands, when you're young, you're just copying whoever you like. So for me, I was obsessed with the Police. I was obsessed with Korn. I was obsessed with Metallica. If you really listen to the raw music, you can hear Police Peter Gabriel meets Korn and Metallica. That's really what it is. But maybe less so nowadays. But in the beginning, that's what it was. But when you're dealing, and by the way, from a career standpoint, I was struggling as an artist through most of the 90s because I didn't have a definition like that. I didn't have something that I could say in a sentence that was like my sound. And that's something that's really hard for artists. So to get back to the original point, one of the things I always tell bands about the signature sound is in the pursuit of finding it, you have to identify the one or two or maybe three things you do really well and forget about everything else. You take those two or three things. And by the way, if one of those things is being really funny, then be fucking funny. Like, one of the things that made me like Danny Warsnop before I knew him personally, when I watched Asking Alexandria play a show, was how funny he was. It was just, there was so much like stand up between him and Ben that it was this moment where you're just completely disarmed because he was so comfortable being funny and letting that part of it be part of the entertainment. It sort of diluted the heaviness of some of the songs. And just in a sense, it's just that thing where you find one or two things, you stick it under a magnifying glass, you blow it up, and then you try not to deviate. Because if you deviate too much, if you wake up one day and your favorite band is now, instead of it being Bring Me the Horizon, now you're obsessed with Falling in Reverse, and now you're obsessed with, you're going to chase. And when you're chasing, you're never leading,
I like that. That makes a lot of sense. And I've heard a lot of people, social media creators that have nothing necessarily, like TikTok stars, that say the same thing. When you hit something that works, double down on that. Right.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think that it's really sort of unique to just artists or creative people. I think it's, in all aspects of life. You know what I mean? It's like, you want to present the best possible version of yourself, even to the people that you love. You don't want to burden them with all the stuff that you're still working on. And obviously, if you're close to someone, then they accept that. But it's one of those things where you learn to be more efficient. You learn to just sort of like get to the point.
You mentioned a second ago. Well, let's go back. So 2002, "Do You Call My Name?" That song, like Kevin mentioned it. When that thing comes on, it's like sitting in a DeLorean and going a blast to the past for me. Like, it brings up so many great memories from that time in my life. Very influential time. It was college age years, beginning of for me. Love that song. But you mentioned 7 years you took off from the music industry. Is that as a whole completely total, and why?
No, I took off. I guess technically it's 6, but I took off 6 years just from Raw. So
Okay.
when roughly 2009, really, it was when I started sort of putting it on the shelf as sort of a side thing, because I was really focused on producing and writing for other artists. And then we did a record called Critical Mass, which came out in 2012 as a result of a Kickstarter, and it was really fun to do, and I was psyched on it. We only played in total maybe 12 shows for the entire album cycle, and then I didn't do anything else. So 2013 roughly, and then I didn't do anything, literally nothing, Raw related until 2020. I might have put out like one or two like side songs, but for the most part, I was content with sort of leaving it on the side and working on producing with other bands. And again, Starset is one of sort of like my proudest projects that I've been deeply involved with. 8 songs that I've co-written for Starset, including Manifest and other songs. And it's one of those things where the amount of time it takes to get good at sort of co-writing and producing, you can't phone that in. So I really needed to sort of like put stuff on the side and just really go sort of like full blast into producing and writing and just getting like, and I got to work with like Motley Crue and all really, really cool things. It's just never, it was never something that I could have done half-assed. So I just put Raw on the side for the time being.
Why step out of the limelight and being the front man of your own band to go into the producing side of it? What was the draw there?
The draw was in 2005, I met a girl and I really liked her, and she sort of satisfied all of my fantasy versions of who I wanted to be with. And then the fantasy became real, and then she was like literally sort of the embodiment of everything that I was. So I grew up always sort of prioritizing relationships and being in love and being passionate, and this girl was everything to me. So I stopped everything else so I could marry her. I mean, we're still together. It's 17 years we've been together, and she wasn't going to be in a serious relationship with a guy doing 200 shows a year. So, and also for me, this is a little bit of a joke, but I sort of really, really believe it. I got everything in the wrong order. It's like I got a record deal, I started putting the thing, and then you're supposed to make a shit ton of money, and then you're supposed to get the trophy wife. And I skipped right to the trophy wife without making a shit ton of money, and then I had to make a shit ton of money so I could support the trophy wife. So there was a lot of just like, God, I gotta get focused on doing this. I mean, you got to remember, mid 2000s, active rock radio was dying. There really wasn't even Breaking Benjamin took those years off. Like there really wasn't a drive for me to say, oh, I can still blow the fuck up and explode as Raw, when there just wasn't. It just, a very good friend of mine who was in radio at the time, he said, look, I don't know what you would do. What are you going to be, the king of a pile of shit? And he literally said it, and it really resonated. And I was like, well, I guess it's time to focus on the producing side. But in part, a lot of it was always, I always figured I'd do something where I sang and just sort of kept the ball rolling. But I mean, 6 years later, and then 2020 rolls around, and we had our son Mason, and I had promised her that we would leave LA. I didn't want Mason to go to school in LA, like school. He was going to preschool, but I didn't want him to go to regular school in LA. And I promised her that we would move and buy a house. I was also spending, hundreds of thousands of dollars renting houses in Los Angeles, which was a waste of money. So we made a promise to buy a house, and we bought it in her hometown where she grew up in Fort Wayne, Indiana. And cost of living here is great. And I get to have an awesome studio and get to work. I actually work a lot with Sweetwater because that's here as well.
Yeah.
And, it's a pretty good situation. And the side effect of being here is that I can do a tour. I can go out for a few weeks and do some Raw stuff because I want to. And my wife has such a huge sort of like, community of friends and family that it's not like when I was in LA. If I left a house, if I went to Vegas for two days in LA, I felt like I'd abandoned my family. Here, I'm worried they don't notice when I'm not home. It's like I'm going to be gone for 3 weeks, and they're like, "Well, we're going to play this, and we're going to go on the boat, and we're going to do this, and we're going to do that," and I'm the one who's jealous.
Come back whenever. It's like whatever, it doesn't matter. Yeah.
Yeah.
You made a very conscious decision with it. Seems like a lot of forethought, man. So kudos to you for not just chasing something that really chasing something you already had, right? Like fulfillment, like you already had that. You know what I mean?
Somewhat. Yeah. I mean, what was funny was the actual sort of. So I wrote the Dirt, the song "The Dirt" for Motley Crue, the movie. And when that MPK is on, and then I also co-wrote the other 3 new Motley Crue songs, right? So Nikki Sixx used to be at my house at it all the time, and when things got a little crazy in Los Angeles, and we were just sort of going back and forth, and you got to remember, Nikki Sixx is maybe the most LA guy that's ever exist, right? Like there's literally, when you think of Hollywood and you think about music, you think about Motley Crue, right?
Yeah.
So,
yes, absolutely.
These guys, Nikki's calling me and we're talking and we're talking and we're talking. And he's like, "Man, I think I'm going to move to Wyoming." And I'm like, "Really?" And he's like, "Yeah, I just think I want to go." This is like November of 2019. He's like, "I think I'm just going to go." And I'm like,
"This is pre-COVID."
Like,
pre-COVID.
This wasn't about COVID at all. It was just sort of a feeling. And he just kept on saying, "Yeah, I think it's time. I think it's time. I want my kid to grow up somewhere else." And I just sort of, for whatever reason, I sort of just was like, yeah, I think I'm with you on that. And I started looking. And I mean, just in terms of like timing, I pulled up to my new house February 27th of 2020. Yeah. And LA shut down a week later.
Yeah, you timed that out very, very, very.
Yeah, I got real lucky on that front. It actually ended up, of course, the fear when you leave Los Angeles is that you're going to lose business, but it actually blew it up even more because everyone was like, "I got to get out of here," and they came to me. So
that was one of the things too. Do you do most of your stuff now? Do people actually have to come to Fort Wayne, like to your house, or is it virtual? Are we swapping files over the internet? Like, how does that work?
It's both. I like having people here. I just had Jason Hook here for a week, and the singer for his solo project for 2 weeks, and it's fun when they come because it allows me to see my son. It allows me to sort of, the weird thing about studios is that gear is just gear. But when you're talking about workflow and you have things set up a certain way, it's harder for me to create in another environment, not because I don't know how to, but it's just not going to be as quick and easy. Correct. And when you're writing, one of the things that's really important is to get through the ideas. So, I've worked with producers and writers that, that'll spend 35 minutes trying to pick a kick drum. And I'm just like, guys, we need to get onto just the songwriting part of this. Forget about the kick drum. Let's get the song done. So I'm really fast here and I have everything dialed in. So it's one of those things where having people come to me is really, really fun and satisfying. And my house is set up for some artists to stay, and they stay here, and it has a whole different wing just for the studio people. But I also do a lot more nowadays as a result of COVID. I do a lot more remotely. A lot of times I'll just have a band that, I do a lot of melodies and what's called top lining. So top lining in music is when you write the melodies and the lyrics. And so people will send me instrumentals, and I will take those instrumentals and just put down a whole bunch of options for melodies and sort of work with them remotely until that's done, and then help them when they record it with the lyrics and the whole thing. It's really, really low impact for me because I don't have to leave, and I can do all the stuff quickly. So I'm really into that part of doing stuff. And I've sort of carved out a niche as the vocal guy, which is what I've been doing for a lot of bands. So it's going well.
That is all. I've never heard of that top line. That is really cool because I know what you're talking about. You're talking about putting the decoration on the cake, which is the hook or the everything, right? The melody like that.
Yeah. So one of the cool things, and I'm going to speak a little less humble than I probably should, but I'm a really good singer. And one of the things that's a side effect of being a really good singer is you can articulate your ideas without them being sort of like compromised. So if I was a shitty singer with a great idea, I really would have a hard time teaching you what it is that I want you to hear. But
you'd be
because
saying
I'm
all shitty, but you'd be like, it should be way up here or over
yeah,
here.
yeah, yeah. Like, I've worked with guys that are like, well, what if we did this? And they're like, whoa. And you're just like, dude, I don't know what you're doing. But, for me, because I can sing things virtually the way, pretty exactly the way I want them to sound, it's sort of a gift in this line of work, because then I can sort of deliver it to them and they can do whatever they want with it. But it's one of those things where I deliver it sort of purely and it comes across. It allows me to do stuff in that way. And I'm really fast with melodies. I hear things. Dustin from Starset calls me the melody database police, because every time he comes up with a melody, I'm like, oh, that's just that song from Journey in 1976. And he's like, what? And I'm like, yeah, this is this melody. But yeah, I mean, I memorize a lot of things musically, especially notes, and it just allows me to have like a big toolbox when it comes to writing melodies for other people.
Well, there were two questions in my head, and this dovetails right off of one of them. Is your vocal background? Because I remember that from the first Raw record, just being like, damn, this dude is up there. Like, you're just crushing it. Like, where did that come from? Just as a kid, did you take lessons?
I feel like the honest answer is genetically I have a good voice, Okay. But I was singing at a very young age, and I was singing fairly complicated things. So one of the first bands that really influenced me as a child, and this is crazy, is a band called Return to Forever. It was a fusion jazz band, and it was Al Di Meola, Chick Corea, Stanley Clarke, and Lenny White. And it was one of these crazy fusion jazz records that had rock elements, but was really just jazz and no vocals. And I was like 5 or 6 years old, and the name of the album was The Romantic Warrior. And the album still to this day is one of the greatest fits. Actually, Sting, who's fun. It's funny because I didn't know this when I was obsessed with Sting, found out much later. But Sting actually credits seeing Return to Forever live in Newcastle when he was a kid as one of the reasons why he wanted to do music. But anyway, the moral of the story is I used to sing the melody lines along with the playing as characters, because all the songs, one song was called like The Romantic Warrior, the Majestic King, the Jester. Like I would act them out as a little kid thinking they were storylines, but I would sing along with it. And then later on, when I was in I guess junior high school, they put me in Glee Club and like had me starting to sing, and I didn't like it. I didn't like it one bit. I didn't like getting the attention. I didn't like being singled out. I didn't like people saying, oh, you're a good singer, and feeling like other kids didn't like me because I was better than them. Oh. So I didn't do that. And then when I went to LaGuardia High School, which is the sort of the fame school in New York City. And I got in for music and I got in for painting, and sort of in the same light, I picked painting. I didn't want to do music. I felt weird about it. I felt like I didn't want to be taught music. It was a weird thing. But by the time I was a senior in that school, I was already full-time making music all the time. And that was sort of the beginning of all of it. And then I just sort of gravitated towards it on a technical level, meaning that I started being obsessed with like Joe Satriani and Steve Vai and all the guitar heroes. And that sort of led me down the road. So that once bands like Queensryche and Korn and everything else started popping, I was really, really into it.
I know Kevin's got the the video queued up here. We're gonna get ready to play it.
Sure.
But last quick question before we roll in the video is, where did the name come from, Raw? That I've always wanted to know that.
It's a very simple reason. So like I've said probably 6 times already, I was obsessed with the Police and I was obsessed with Sting. And Sting was my idol, and I just wanted to be like him no matter what I could do. So Sting wrote a bazillion songs about the moon. He had Walking on the Moon, Nothing Like the Sun was his album. Yes. He had the Moon Over Bourbon Street, all of these songs about the moon. So I was like, well, fuck it, I'm going to write songs about the sun. So I started writing all these songs about the sun, and then I was having dinner with this girl, and I was trying to think of a name and all this stuff, and in the middle of it, she was like, well, what about Ra? And I was like, you mean like the Egyptian sun god? And she was like, yeah. I was like, there's no way that that's not taken. And then I actually found out through an attorney, I looked it up and all this stuff, and it wasn't copyrighted as a band name. And so I copyrighted as a band name. And in 1998, there was a movie that was a sequel to Carrie called Carrie 2: The Rage. Yep. And it was terrible. But my first commercial, like major commercial release, was the end title sequence song for that movie. So we had a song called Crazy Little Voices, and it was Bring Me the Rage was the subtitle of it, and it was the theme, the end title. So when the movie ended, that was the song that played.
I love it, dude. All right, Kevin, I'm sorry for hogging it up, but
no, it's all good. So we're gonna play Intercorrupted, of course, which was the title track off the most recent album. I want to make sure I got my stuff right. So it was the original lineup that recorded this album, right?
So yeah, so one of the things that I made as a criteria of making this record was that it had to have everybody on it. I didn't want to be one of those things where, you find out a band's coming back and then nobody is original except for one guy.
Right.
So I really, really wanted them to be on it, and and I was lucky enough to get them to tour last year, and get mostly the shows done with everybody on it. The bittersweet part of it is the tour we're about to go on now is just me and a bunch of guys. But it's one of those things where me and Scooter look back on our history, and I started playing with Scooter in bands in 1996, and that's just a really long time to try and keep a guy to make no money going out on the road and play to a few hundred people. And we just sort of like reached the point last year where he had been on tour, and I was just like, you know what, we're a little too old to be slumming it out here. And it doesn't bother me, but it was bothering him, so he sort of bailed on it. And Ben, the original guitar player, he has a business where he does meditation and all the stuff where he leads these meditations, and it's very, very time consuming. So for him to take time off is pretty like detrimental to his business. So he's basically out for now. And PJ, who is still in the band technically, but he's also in Fozzy. So Fozzy's out on tour now, so he can't go out with us here, but he'll be doing the shows we do in the summer. But yeah, he's in Fozzy, so there's a direct scheduling conflict with that.
All right, so we're going to roll into Intercorrupted, and one thing we like to do is you can tell us nothing, or you can tell us everything about the song. So
all right, I'm going to talk the fuck over it.
All right. Well, you're not going to be, we're going to be muted while it's playing.
Yeah.
We can talk about it after we get it back, but I'm going to ask you this. I was looking at the video, and I've seen it probably quite a few times, and I never noticed until a couple of days ago when I was watching. I was looking at the skyline. Was that filmed in New Orleans?
It was not. It was filmed in downtown Phoenix, Arizona.
Okay, because that skyline looked awfully darn familiar.
Yeah.
But all right, I'm wrong. I'll go with it. All right, here it is. Here is Raw. It's Intercorrupted, and you are watching The Sound.
We tried to let it be, to let you think for yourselves. But you don't even want to. You give up your hope and your freedom so willingly, just for the thrill of the blame, wasting your lives in constant fear and hate. Searching for meaning in anything and everything that numbs your soul. Well, we will take what you don't deserve. We will take it and hide it, where you'll never be able to find it again. So we can finally have a world that is truly intercorrupted. Is wrong. My soul is cut, hiding in the blood. When will the infection die? Sanity's a liar, dripping on a wire, blowing all the truth sky high. I don't wanna face the fate of everything you tell me when you don't even know me, drowning in my own dismay. But is there any other way? Intercorrupted, your peace of mind disrupted. Too late for the world to see the line between you and me. Intercorrupted, your innocence is undead. Too dark for the world to see the line between you and me. The violence is everywhere, it permeates the walls we live in. And we turn away 'cause we don't even notice anymore. The rage that we feel inside is pointed in the wrong direction. But it makes us feel alive, so why not leave the angels at the door? 'Cause we don't need them anymore. And we are intercorrupted, your peace of mind disrupted. Too late for the world to see the light between you and me.
And we're back. And that was Intercorrupted. That was Raw. And Sahaj with us from Raw. And so tell us about the song.
So the song, sort of the whole album, to be honest, is sort of like a social commentary to some extent. The concept for this particular song is the idea that in the current state of the world where everything is so super divided, right? You know, far left, far right, everybody's sort of at each other's throat. There's an unspoken compromise or an unspoken agreement between both sides, right? The person who's far left sort of needs the person who's far right in order to be able to act out that hatred, act out that anger. The same thing for someone who's on the far right who you know, if you were in a vacuum, you wouldn't have the feelings. You need that other person, or you need that enemy in which to sort of use your energy to focus. So the overarching idea of intercorrupted, which by the way is a fake word, I made it up, is the idea that we're intercorrupted. Both of us are wrong for sort of being on the extremes. And that I've also, you know, for Ra, it's not an uncommon theme to sort of preach the middle way, or you know, that black or white is sort of a waste and that gray is probably the safer place, you know, sort of a centrist mentality. But you know, there's a lot of deeper sort of political things where, you know, I talk to a lot of people about situations in the world, and I think people are, for the most part, sort of duped into thinking that a lot of the things that are important are really not. You know, a lot of the things that we're fed as sort of information diet is really not stuff that matters. You know, it's all a distraction to sort of allow the people who think they know better and who have all the means to sort of make sort of grand decisions. You know, I mean, people cheered about Elon Musk buying Twitter, but you know, it's not that different than Jeff Bezos having the Washington Post, or Rupert Murdoch, and just all the same stuff. It's these, or Zuckerberg for that matter. Like the idea of being in a position to control information, it doesn't end well, right? There's no real way to be like stoked that one person is making the choices for millions of people. It's just not going to work. And I think that a lot of the things that go on in our government are also sort of victimized by the same thinking, right? So instead of, I talked to my friend. I'm a Puerto Rican Russian guy from New York City who lived in Los Angeles for 10 years. And now I live in Fort Wayne, Indiana, right? So people in Fort Wayne, Indiana tend to think one way, different than the way we thought in New York and all that stuff. But I was always touring the country sort of gave me a nice sort of palette to work from, understanding things. But at the end of the day, it's all the same thing in that I've known a lot of celebrities, and I sort of see some people in Congress as celebrities, right? If you're able to be a congressman for 40 years or a senator for 40 years, you're no longer able to have an actual sort of like a reality-based connection to what other people are doing, because it's just like being Chris Hemsworth, right? Chris Hemsworth has no reality basis compared to like everyone else. Chris Hemsworth's life is completely crazy compared to yours and mine, but he thinks it's totally normal. So it's the same thing that happens with the government. People who are in, the Pelosi's and the McConnells, who are in government for years and years and years, they lose perspective. They have no idea how to navigate real people's lives. And, not to be the guy who's preaching political shit, but if you're not talking about term limits and you're not literally focused on term limits, you really have no basis to argue any political argument, because the only thing that ruins government, as far as I can tell, and I'm just a guy, is the fact that these guys are there for 40 years. There should be term limits for senators and congressmen. They should never, ever, ever be allowed to stay in. Even if you want to make 8 or 12 years the limit, that's fine. But at least you get somebody at some point in their career who's willing to do the right thing and not just to say what will get him elected. And I think that that's essentially what we have going on all sides of the spectrum. And it just wastes an enormous amount of and it wastes money too, because these companies that could be reinvesting their money into curing cancer, into making renewable energy, if that's something that we want to do, or all of that stuff, instead they're paying lobbyists and they're paying all this money to special interest groups in order to get stuff passed, because the guy who's there has no perspective. I don't know. Sorry, I went off on my political trail.
Hey, look, politics is my jam. I love that stuff.
I was sitting back enjoying it.
I think Raw. I've always felt it was a thinking man's band lyrically, right? I've always loved that about the music and the content. I'm glad to hear you say all that stuff. And for sure, I agree with 90% of what you just said. Term limits being one of them. I just wish that the American voter would educate themselves and be more active in the political process, to where term limits didn't need to be instituted, because I feel like if you just do term limits, they're just going to groom the next guy, tell them it's 4 years, tell them it's 7, 8, 12, whatever. They're going to have, Pelosi Part B ready to go. As soon as that limit's up, they're going to just serve that up to you on a silver platter. And if you're dumb enough to vote for it again, that's what you're going to do. That's
my terrible solution to that is you do a 12-year term limit and you only get one re-election. So for the first 6 years, you get to be the douchebag political person worrying about special interests and trying to do everything you need to do for getting reelected. But for the second 6 years, you get to be that guy who knows, well, I can't be reelected. I mean,
the money's too thick, and they'll just continue to do what's paying them, even though they're not going to get reelected, and they'll funnel that to the next guy. That's my opinion.
I think you're right. I think it might help, though, because there's an element. I mean, let's just look at I'm going to use Jeff Flake as an example, right? So remember when Jeff Flake was starting to talk a bunch of shit about Trump and whatever side, I'm not even using it. I'm not picking a side here, but I'm just using it as an example that he went against the grade only because he knew he wasn't going for re-election.
There's some truth to that for sure.
So I only think I don't necessarily think that's going to happen all the time, but I think it will happen more often than it does now.
Education is the way to freedom, is what I've always thought.
And then my answer to that is very unpopular. And my answer to that is that I don't necessarily think that all people have the ability to digest the amount of data that's being shoved at them on a daily basis through their device.
I think we need you back on to talk politics. I do another podcast and we could jam that up for hours on end too. So
let's do it.
Love that, dude.
So let's talk about this new tour that you got starting here in
Sure.
about a week. So it's you guys. It's Stitched Apart, September Morning. The band that was going to join us, but unfortunately couldn't join us tonight, Above Snakes. So they're going to be there. The only thing that I don't like about this tour is you're going the wrong way. So you start in Texas.
First I have to ask, where are you located?
Biloxi,
Mississippi, and Pensacola, Florida.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's
deep south, baby.
So listen. First of all, we are tentatively up for a much bigger tour in October and November. If that happens, I have no control over where it's going to go.
Right.
But if that doesn't happen, the idea is to do all of the East Coast down to Florida, do the Panhandle, and go and end somewhere in New Orleans, Nashville area. So if that comes together, then we'll be able to hang out and make things happen.
That's I don't want your big tour to fail, but I want your big tour to fail. No, because we want you down here. That would be great, man. Honestly.
So you guys earlier this year? You guys did some dates with Any Given Sin as well, right?
Yeah, that was last November.
Okay.
So so we were with the same management company at the time, and those guys are really nice guys. I think they're really good dudes.
Yes, absolutely. And that I just remember seeing that because that was the one where Jared and I were actually debating about possibly flying to Michigan to the machine shop to see the show. So
that was a good show. Unfortunately, my agent, for whatever reason, these agents sometimes, and my agent's an awesome dude and I love the guy, but he sometimes they just sort of, they just look at the schedule and start booking things. So that machine shop show, which was one of our bigger shows on that tour, was the last of 7 in a row. Ooh. And I've never done 7 shows in my life in a row. And headlining, now that we have 5 albums, the show is fairly long. So trying to headline a set after 7 days, no day off. I made it through, but I was not in 100% shape on that show.
Yeah. And the way you sing too, that's tough. Yeah.
So when you put a tour together, or when you guys are working on a tour together and you're the headliner of the tour, how do you go about, how does these bands are going to open up? How does that happen? Do you have any say in that, or is that just agents working together? Or
so in this particular case with what's happening right now, I've worked with September Morning since 2012, and I've worked with Stitched Apart since 2014. The original band that was going to be the opening band was going to be Killicoy, which is a band I discovered in Charlotte, North Carolina.
Yes.
They couldn't afford the fuel cost of doing the entire run, so they had to bail, although Jordan from Killicoy, who's the singer, is playing guitar on this tour like he did on the last tour.
I got you.
But so I was hopeful that it would be a show where every band was playing songs that I wrote. That was the goal, was just to have an entire Sahajapalooza going on the entire time. But now that we have
no ego there.
Yeah, so I'm gonna have to write some songs for Above Snakes if they ever want to go out on tour with us again. Nice. So but yeah, our agent, we all have the same agent. So gotcha. That's how the Stitched Apart September Morning thing came together.
Awesome. It, so if anybody's looking to find Raw so what are you most active on? Social media, Instagram, Facebook?
It's both. We have more followers on Facebook, but I always post everything to Instagram and Facebook together. Yep. And it's probably there. That's the easiest, so on Instagram, it's official Raw Band, at official Raw Band. On Facebook, weirdly, and I mean this because we were really, really freaked out when it happened, because it happened very quickly, which is not normal. We are verified, and it's just Raw.
Yes, but so you still, I just found this out because I tagged you at the beginning of the show. You still have to type at official RA for it to come up for the tag.
That's possible, because that's what it says on the URL.
Yes,
but wherever we write, it just says Raw. It doesn't say anything else. And I couldn't believe, like, we were warned after being so inactive for 6 years. They're like, oh, you're never going to get verified, and it took like 2 days.
Yes.
So it was pretty cool. And then trying to build up the TikTok thing, but that's slow, and I don't post enough, and I don't look that good in a bikini. So
hey, just let Jared know. Jared's an expert at TikTok.
I am definitely not. I know what to do. I just don't execute on it. So One other question. What about people? What about, we have a lot of bands and new artists on as part of our audience. If they want to hire you in the producer role, how do we reach out for that?
I have a website. It's just Sahaj Ticketon at sahajticketon.com. But also on Facebook, if you hit me up on the Raw one, I have a Sahaj the Producer Facebook page too. But I answer all the correspondence on both. But sahajticketon.com, I have a form where you can fill it out and sort of tell me your whole spiel and send links, and I can check stuff out. The good news is that I'm sort of the good news for me is that I'm a lot pickier than I used to be. I used to have to hustle my face off. I don't quite hustle as much anymore. But there's, if you come to me with either a lot of money or a lot of talent or anywhere in between, we can usually make something work.
Dude, that's honest. That is an honest answer. If you got a lot of talent or a lot of money, honest to God, that's the perfect answer. Like, we can make something work.
I mean, I've been doing this a long time, and I don't pretend. My entertainment attorney, who's a very famous guy, has like Bad Wolves and Five Finger and all these other bands. He basically says because he hears some of the bands that I work on that don't necessarily live up to the recordings we end up with. And he constantly uses a football term, and he's like, Saj, I love this, but you outkicked your coverage again. So he's always sort of beefing on me, but I try not to do that anymore. I try to really like find stuff I like.
Well, and because your name's on it too, right? In other words, you not only do you want the great recording, but you don't want them to go out and not sound like the great recording, because it's even better for you, correct?
I mean, ultimately, I don't charge enough for a band to come here and just suck. I want them to go out and actually get wealthy and successful, so that I have a back end that actually makes sense. I'm looking for, with streaming and the way that it all works now, I'm looking for annuities. I want to be able to see that money trickle in, even if you're not doing hundreds of millions of streams. If your band gets a couple million streams and another band gets a couple million streams, starts to add up.
Does that work just as the producer role, or is that with writing credits as well?
It's right. So that's a sort of a loaded question. So the honest answer is that as a writer, you make money from performances, meaning that if it gets played on Octane, or if it gets played somewhere, there's a payment schedule that gets set up for collection by either BMI or ASCAP, and then you make money that way, right? Then there's also sound exchange. So if I'm performing on your record, I'm singing background vocals or I'm singing extra guitar parts, I might participate in the sound exchange, which is this digital royalties collection. Then there's another thing called the MLC, which does basically what mechanical licenses used to do back in the old days for album sales. Now it does it for digital streaming. So there's these different little revenue streams that sort of come in, and you can, if you do it enough and you get enough stuff trickling, a little trickle can become a little river,
We need your attorney to come on the show and talk to us about all of that. That'd be great.
He's on a bunch of stuff. I mean, he's easily found. His name is Eric German. He's a very, very well-known rock and roll attorney, and he does incredible work.
Well, we would love to have him on for sure, because that's what we're about here, is trying to educate new artists. We want to be the mouth of the underground, so that would be great.
Nice, for sure. I'll let him know.
Awesome. Yeah, awesome, man. Dude, thank you for your time. Me and Kevin talked about before we went live, like, this is one of the ones I've been looking forward to, an extremely since Kevin told me about it, man, because I've been a fan since the first single. So I'm glad to see you're back out doing it. I didn't know anything about the behind the scenes stuff that you've been doing, so that's been educational for me and hopefully for the audience, man. I'm glad to know that you're still out there crushing it. That's awesome.
Oh yeah, lots of stuff. A Bad Wolf song on the newest record. There's a bunch of. I'm blanking at the moment. I just did a song with that band Saul.
Yes.
I did another. Geez, there's so many. I'm working with this band Varsity.
Yep. We met them a couple months ago. Great group of guys. Like anything you ever have, though, if there's anything that we can do to help you get it out, to be the voice, send us a song, send us anybody you're working with, a band. We would love to be a part of broadcasting that. That's why we created this show.
Absolutely, man. I'm in.
Sweet. Well, thank you so much. Good luck on the tour. And I'll be seeing one of the bands you worked with on Tuesday when I go see the Breaking Benjamin tour. So,
oh, nice. Very good. Excellent. I was literally texting Dustin, and while the video was playing, because I found a really funny butt rock band name for a band name, but I don't want to out them, but that was pretty funny because we have this thing, we try and find, there's certain lyrics and titles and things that are super duper butt rock, you know, and like the words like ashes and cold and scars and angels and, you know, save me from myself and all of the things that are sort of like in every butt rock song.
Right.
We try and outdo each other and try and find things that are more butt rock than the last thing.
Butt rock is a new term for me. I haven't heard. I know jaw rock, which is somebody turned me, you know, that was the Creeds and the Alice in Chains with their her, you know, that thing. I never heard of butt rock.
See, I never heard that one. So the lineage of butt rock, and I know this because I was there at the very beginning, was that hair metal had another name, right? Do we remember what the other name of hair metal was? Cock rock.
Okay.
So we used to call it cock rock.
I remember glam rock.
Right, glam rock, but they used to call it cock rock, right? Because you had the fake dick in there, and you like, you know, and
yes.
they call it cock rock. And then all of a sudden in the late 90s, when bands like Creed and Tool and Godsmack and all of those bands started like getting super popular, all those bands were detuning and making it lower. Yes. Like detuning the guitars and going lower to lower notes. And what's lower than your cock but your butt? So the butt rock that was, you know, and then Nickelback sort of like took all of that and ran with it and just like perfected butt rock. So the perfection of butt rock is Nickelback. But yeah, there's quite a bit of butt rock still left over in the world.
Well, there's your micro clip, Kevin, right there. I can guarantee it. So I love it, man.
Well, Sai, thank you so much. And hope to hear from you soon. Hope to see you guys live soon. And let's make it happen.
All right, I'm in. Thanks a lot, guys. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Have a great night, man.
You too.
Bye-bye. What a great interview.
No joke, man. I was excited about that one, and it exceeded my expectations for sure.
So, all right, so we got butt rock. So we got a few things to talk about.
Go ahead.
So we got some upcoming shows that, of course, we've talked about it already, but our next episode is actually next week, 4 days, Monday night, with Tommy Vext and Kingdom Collapse. So they'll be joining us on Monday night. Those wonderful Monday night shows. Then on May 26th, we have Breathing Theory and Varsity. They've been one of the bands we were just talking about. They will be on the show on May 26th. So that's the upcoming shows that we know about. You never know. We might throw something in on a surprise or whatever, but upcoming live shows, I posted it on Facebook earlier today to send me some upcoming show flyers so we can kind of promote it during a certain section of the show. And someday I'll have a graphic that goes into it and we'll roll through them and all that and make it look real pretty and shit. But right now you're just going to get the poster and us talking about it. So coming up, Pardon the Scars is on the way back out, man. They've got some new stuff. They've got a new show. They've got some shows that they're playing live. So Light Divided and Enemy and Pardon the Scars, it's going to be at the Downtown Music Hall on July 17th in Fort Walton Beach. And then they are going to be playing a benefit show here in Pensacola, the Jesse Smith Memorial Benefit, with a bunch of other bands as well. It's kind of dark. I see After the Storm. I see Rotting World, X Formation. But anyway, so that band is that benefit is happening, and it's a no cover benefit. So 3:00, June 11th. So that's happening. And then Love Stories End will be playing with Tragic, who we've had on the show, Filth, Fighting Giants. And that show's actually in Tallahassee, Florida, but that is the bands that sent us some stuff. And then we've got August 5th. We've already talked about it. Kingdom Collapse with Awaken the Giant, Rise the Phoenix. August 5th at the Cannery. You can get your tickets now in advance. Save yourself $5 by getting them in advance at thesound228.com. And then the week later, or 8 days later, you got Post Profit with Jared's band, Falls from Grace, opening up the show at the Cannery as well. And that's $10 a person. So that's all those shows that are coming up. But one that we got today that we are going to talk about, and an opportunity for you to go see it, is coming up next week. Next Wednesday, the Black Label Society is going to be playing the Soul Kitchen in Mobile with Jared James Nichols and Rise the Phoenix. And we have free tickets to give away. Now, we're going to tell you exactly how to give them away by going and putting this back up. So, no, yes. So if you go to Google Play or to the App Store and download the Sound 228 app, not only do you get to hear the radio station, you get to hear all the on-demand shows, you get to see the past episodes. Everything that we've got is all bundled up into this one nice mobile app that you can get on any device and through any of the stores. You get to hear the audio version of the podcast. You get to go to the shop. You get all of that kind of stuff. And there is now a button on there that says register for Black Label Society tickets. So what we're going to do is for the next, probably till Tuesday, no, probably Monday, we will give everybody an opportunity to go register. Then we are going to pick a winner and their name will be at the will call. Rise the Phoenix has your tickets and they will be putting your name at will call and you will be able to go see Black Label Society May 18th at the Soul Kitchen in Mobile.
Love it.
Whew. That's a lot of talking.
We probably should have did that at the beginning of the show.
Probably should have because now I'm tired.
Yeah, that's okay. I'll clip that. Kevin is an asshole. I'll clip that and we'll share it out. But yeah, go to the app, register for the free tickets, and go see a damn good show. Black Label Society. Are you kidding me?
Right. So on that note, we're getting ready to wrap up the show. So we are going to announce who the
Ann said, including airfare. Unfortunately, right now, Ann, we're not at that financial status. Would that be the right word to say, Kevin?
Status is a good one.
Yeah, we can't do that.
So,
all right,
the winner of our grudge match with 68% of the votes tonight was Tommy Vex, the Lone Wolf.
Woo!
Cancel the King. They are moving into, or he moves into the Hall of Fame. So Monday we will have 2 new videos to go up against each other, and we'll see who that is because I have no clue right now.
I'm gonna throw you one on this one.
You're gonna throw me one?
I said that last time and I didn't, but I'm gonna do it this time.
So
I know.
But anyways, so Tommy Vex, the Lone Wolf, he will be moving into the Hall of Fame. He will be on our show Monday night, along with Kingdom Collapse. We're going to talk about Kingdom Collapse new tour that's going to be coming through here. And then we will talk to Tommy Vex and find out what's going on with him and when his tours are going to be happening. I probably, there were moments where I just sat here and listened tonight. That's probably going to happen Monday when you and Tommy go at it. So listen, I'm probably just going to sit back here and I'll probably get told I need to wake up again. But I have a feeling that conversation is going to be very, very, very intense.
I'm glad you brought it up because I was going to wait till we go off air and I was going to say, listen, I hope I wasn't talking too much tonight, but I can guarantee you when on the Tommy interview, it's going to be worse than that. And then after that, I'll try to shut up on some of the episodes after that, but it's going to get political a little bit. It's going to be long-winded. It's going to be fun. It's going to be fair.
We'll just do it this way. I just won't be on Monday's show.
No. That is not true. And I'm not telling you not to talk. I'm just saying there's a lot of shit I got to ask this guy about. There's a lot of questions. And when I get rolling, I got to stay in the zone with it.
I got you. I'll sit back here like Kermit the Frog drinking.
I'll stay on the son of a bitch for 3 hours if that's what it takes for us to both get our questions in. I'm just saying I know where this is headed.
All right. So we will see.
He's been through some shit, man. He's been through some shit outside of music. Not only is his music good, if his music was mediocre, we'd still have a story, right? But his music's really good, and he's getting what what's the word here, Kevin? They won't play him on the damn radio.
Yeah,
Octane won't touch him.
That's the travesty on some of this is they got fucking political, and they're like, no. We're not going to play him because of what he stands for.
Well, and he got political, which is what I'm going to talk to him about, which, we'll get there. We'll get there. Y'all just stay tuned next for Monday night.
What's my fault?
All of it.
Jesus Christ.
All of it.
All right. We will see you Monday night. Thanks for tuning in and see ya.
Later.